Hello, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining She Leads today. I am so excited to have you on the show, so just thank you.
Hello to you, and I'm happy to be here too. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. So, Lisa, you have such an incredible story, so I'm very excited. But just to read off your bio, you are an award-winning veteran SWAT officer, undercover detective, and decorated U.S. Air Force Desert Storm veteran. Ms. Lockwood, you're an acclaimed author, international speaker, leadership trainer and coach, and a national media contributor on crime. You're a highly sought-after media personality, public speaker, and author of the books Undercover Angel, From Beauty's Queen to SWAT Team, and Reinventing You and Heart of a Military Woman. For more than a decade, you have regularly contributed on major TV networks as a crime prevention specialist, most notably on HLN's Nancy Grace, True Crime Live, On the Story, Robin Meade, Steve Harvey, and Law and Crime Network. So, Lisa, I'm sure you can tell that I am just so excited to have you, this incredible, powerful leader. I told you before, you're the epitome of what She Leads is all about, so I'm just so excited to have you on the show. So, let's get started because, of course.
Thank you. I'm glad you started She Leads. What a great idea, a great concept for a podcast, and I wish you tremendous success with it. I know you're going to do well because enthusiasm is one of the keys to success, and you have it.
Thank you. So, okay, Lisa, as we noted, 30 minutes is not a long time, but let's get started. What I love to do is really ask about, take me back to, even before college, take me back to your childhood. What was your life like, and really, where did you see your future? Where did you imagine your career taking you and what you would be when you would grow up?
The complete opposite of where I am today because I was one of 7 children, fifth born, so a few older, a few younger than me, and parents who didn't pursue education. So both of them my mom was a teenage mother, and education was not very important. It was always about raising children and just putting food in our mouths. So with 7 kids, it was rough. And she used to call me her little hermit because I was an introvert. I loved to read and I excelled in school. So that was kind of like my one thing that I had that I felt like I can build self-esteem. We didn't have a lot of money, and bullying and all the things that happen in a neighborhood where, children are less fortunate and trying to fit in. It was tough, but I always felt that going to school, reading and doing spelling bees and excelling that way was the thing that helped me come out of my shell a little bit. Yeah. So that was the beginning, kind of the early phase of my life.
So then at this moment, when did college become an option, or who told you, said like, Lisa, you can go to college and this is actually a great path for you?
Right. So nobody did, actually. I was one. Now I said 7 children and only 2 of us graduated high school. So it wasn't even a thought in our family of anybody going to college. And the thing that was unique in my life is my mother entered me in the Miss Illinois USA pageant without telling me, sent in a bio, sent my photo in with hopes of getting me in college because I was working full time, commuting on 3 buses, took me forever to get to a community college, and just trying to figure it out on my own because I just loved school. I wanted to excel. And I knew that how do you be successful? I've got to do something a little bit different than how I was raised. So I competed in a pageant. I was called and I answered the phone and I'm in the kitchen. I remember this lady saying who she was for the pageant. I'm like, how did this even happen? So I run to my mom. She's doing laundry and she said, I enter you. They accepted. You're competing. And it was just this whole excitement. So not something that I thought was going to happen in my life. But I did love drama in high school. And one of the dreams was I loved acting is maybe one day I'll move to Hollywood and I'll be in soap operas because I love soap operas at that time in my life. So that pageant experience taught me a lot because I had to raise money just to compete in the beauty pageant and try to figure out who can help me and stay at the hotel, and all of that was just a complete new world for me. So I did the best I could, kind of modeled the other girls who were there and pretended that I was supposed to be there, and did the best that I could. I didn't take the title. I placed 25th out of 205 girls. And it built my self-esteem a little bit more. And that's when I just kind of had the epiphany of, this is do or die right now for me. I so wanted, all my friends were going away to college. I desperately wanted to go, and trying to figure out how to juggle everything that I was doing with the full-time job, with school, with not having a car or the means to have it, I actually started researching branches of the military.
Wow. Okay. So then
Yeah.
where it was at this point that you were thinking of the military, and what, so take me through those steps. What went from point A in the pageant to, okay, I'm in college.
Yeah.
I have a passion for criminal justice. So first, where did that passion come through? And then obviously, I want to join the military now.
Yeah, so joining the military at the time was a means to an end because I knew there was a guy who was there who said, "Oh, I'm here because I joined the military and I got the GI Bill, so now I get to go to college." And I said, "How does that work?" Didn't know anything about it. So then I actually started to look into it, and I visited an Army recruiter's office. I didn't visit the Marines because to me that felt so scary. And then I visited the Air Force recruiter's office. And the Navy, I just thought, well, I don't really want to be on a ship. I don't think that that's what I want my life to be. So I visited the Air Force, and the Air Force ultimately, they said to me, "We have the best living facilities and we have the best food of all the branches." And that's all I cared about.
Oh
I just thought, wow, this is kind of nice. I'm going to live well and I got to eat well while I'm doing that. Don't know what job they're going to give me. So I did. I went home. I told my family I'm joining the Air Force, and I signed up and I actually went in.
Insane. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, Lisa, like looking now at your career, when you reflect on this time in your life, what thoughts do you have? Like, what key lessons can you take away from this time? Because it's not a common, upbringing,
No.
background, and then to have that grit and that, that strength to make it on your own, and to really, I'm not going to let this period of my life define me. So how can you learn from that?
I would have to say that my immediate peer group, just because my peer group was different than my siblings.
Yeah.
So my siblings were having babies as teenagers. My peer group was going to college. So I had a peer group that was about, elevating who I was and where I was and trying to fit into that world. So that's everything. That I think was the biggest lesson. Joining the Air Force was a complete kind of a whim decision of, I have to do this. I have to go to school, and I'm willing to, if it needs to happen, go to war in order to get a college education.
Wow. So from that, you can almost take away that, okay, the people you surround yourself is incredibly important.
Yes.
And you learn
your
from
peer group.
Interesting. Okay. And so now take me, where did your passion for criminal justice and really making a difference in crime and crime prevention, where did that passion come from? Because you got a bachelor's in that as well as a master's. So where did you have that?
Yeah, and that came later because now I did my Air Force career. I was married young. I married a man I fell in love with. What was not the best relationship. Later find out that he was an alcoholic. I didn't know because we were both pretty young at that time, and everybody was drinking. It was the thing to do.
Yeah.
But it was turned volatile, and then later I became a victim of domestic violence. So now I'm thinking, how do I leave this man that I'm with, that I fear, while going to school, finishing the Air Force, and working a job, private security, just so I could go to school and study and be away from my spouse at the time.
Wow.
So now here I am in a place where I feel like a victim, and I don't want to tell people because I'm a little bit ashamed that I put myself in that place and allowed myself to figure it out on my own. Yeah. And it's not anything I would recommend to any woman out there, any girl out there, to think that you have the ability to help or change or save somebody who has, who is violent or shows that they're violent or has an alcoholic problem.
Yeah.
So taking a criminal justice class on a whim during that time when I was in college trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because I loved to read so much, and I started having an affinity into understanding why serial killers did what they did. So that was kind of like this little one-off hobby, so to speak, of reading about pursuing psychology, pursuing abnormal psychology, and trying to find out what happens to people to trigger them to commit such atrocious acts. Then it was like, let me take another criminal justice class. Before I knew it, I'm in the program. I'm doing an internship at a police department to get my associates. And lo and behold, I love it. I'm on a ride along with the Chicago Police Department. They're responding to a victim of a drive-by shooting. I'm in the back car, scared to death. And I watch these tactical unit undercover guys jump out, secure the scene, yellow tape, emergency personnel comes. They finally let me out of the back seat to kind of see what's happening, and I'm taking my notes. And it was like this flood inside of me of me saying, like, that was the defining moment. I am meant to do this work.
Wow.
So then I kind of went all out in that direction of what does it take to become a police officer.
Wow, amazing. What an incredible story. So even like, early on, you didn't know what you wanted to be an actress even. Like you didn't have these plans. It was kind of like your life experiences almost guided the way for you. And they taught
Yes.
you, like your experience with your relationship almost said, okay, you know what, I want to learn, kind of about danger and crime and what goes through the minds of those who commit crime. So
right.
Amazing. And then almost in this moment, did you said like you knew you this is in the right place. This is the right place for you. You knew that this is where I want to be. What are some like tangible, feelings or questions that you were asking yourself to be like, you know what, I could see myself doing this long term? Because I'm thinking like even now, me, graduating from college, when I enter a job, what are some signs that I can be like, okay, you know what, like this is something I love, like I want to do it, long term, or maybe I should transition and move from, for you, like the Army, move to criminal justice or whatnot.
Sure. Because you're happy and you're excited when you wake up. It's compelling to go to your job. Those are the telltale signs. So when it's no longer compelling, that's when I tell people in my book, Reinventing You, which I later wrote, it was that. How do I know what I'm meant to do? How do I know what am I pulled toward? And when you reiterated what I said about reading about serial killers and why do they do that, that was such an interest. And I didn't want to put the books down and give me the next serial killer. Give me the next one. What did he do? What happened in his youth? Tell me this, tell me that. So it was a frenzy of wanting that knowledge and information.
Right.
And that segued into the next thing and the next thing in my police career after that.
Incredible. So, okay, you're a female leader in law enforcement, which I haven't talked to prior to this. So first, take me into this world. I'm not incredibly familiar with it. I've done some research, but take me into your everyday life that you experience in this world, being on the SWAT team, being an undercover agent as a Hooters waiter or stripper, prostitute, whatever you had to endure. Take me through that world and really the mentality you had to have at every stage.
So remember when I said I wanted to be an actress in high school? So here I got to be an actress as a police officer when I worked undercover. So then another way I was able to fulfill a lifelong dream of being somebody that I was not. So I tell people it's the act as if principle. Just the way actors and actresses, they study for roles and try to get the backstory and get ready and prepared for character.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that I did on the police department. So think about this. I was in basic training. I was in the military. I had that experience, 4 years, knowing what it's like to handle weapons, knowing what it's like to protect myself, all of those things, the technical part, wearing uniform. Now I transitioned into police work, and it was all the same. It was a uniform, learning how to protect yourself, learning how to protect others, etc. And then it became enhanced when I was asked to work undercover. And that was super exciting for me because now I said, now I get to use these acting skills because, and it's situations where it's life and death. So I better act like my life depends on it because a lot of times it did. A lot of times undercover, I didn't have a wire. I didn't have a weapon on me because fear of being searched by the bad guy who I was trying to, pretend I was this role, this character. There weren't cameras on me. My backup was kind of far away or in parking lots or across the street. So it depended on how I was able to pull that off.
And did you have, like, for instance, your mom, or did you have people in your life saying, Lisa, maybe you shouldn't, like, this is a risky job. It's not, like, there are much safer jobs out there that you can go into. And how did you respond to that?
And I said, well, when I went in the military, my mom said, do you know this means you might have to go to war? And I'm just like, Mom, we haven't been to war in so long. Stop it. Wow. I joined the Air Force in 1989. We were in war in 1990. So, here I'm in Saudi Arabia and Dhahran, I'm on a base. And later on, my base was blown up and that was at a peacetime. But my mom was like, I don't understand this. I'm not happy about it. And then police and she's upset, and she obviously, I'm her daughter, and she was protective of me, and I'm petite, and I'm 5'5", and I'm 115 pounds, and she just always thought that I was this little fragile hermit child that she raised, and how in the world was I going to be able to take care of myself and others, out there with a weapon.
Yeah.
So yes, I had that resistance along the way with Mom anytime I wanted to delve into something that was potentially dangerous, and any parent would feel that way. My dad was super proud of me, so that felt great.
And so obviously these are both the Air Force as well as the SWAT team and going into the police force. Those are very male-dominated space, even today. And I'm sure back then in 1989, it was even more so. So tell me about your experience being a female in this space, and really advice you have for females now who are maybe, thinking of like their passion does align with something that is very male-dominated. How did you navigate around that?
Well, gaining acceptance. For me, one of the things that I have is unique, I guess, in the sense that I have a warped sense of humor. So my father, when I was growing up, I would watch the Three Stooges. I would watch all these crazy shows. I watched MASH with my dad, and it was a comedy, but it was real, and all of this stuff. So I was like Dad's second boy, because he only had one boy and 6 girls. And being close to him, I think that humor. So I took that humor with me wherever I went. And with guys, me kind of being able to relate to a male humor got me a long way in the Air Force, which was an all-male squadron, and I was the only female. And then on to police work, where there were 4 other female police officers on my department. But even in that time, and the SWAT team had no women. Yeah. So I had already had that background of Air Force, worked with all men. Police, work with primarily all men. And now the SWAT team, 0 women again, and being able to do that. So for me, what was key is not being a threat to them, for them thinking the biggest fear they had is you're going to kill the boys club, you're going to sue us for sexual harassment. They were just so worried that they couldn't be men, and the boys club would be gone if we insert Lisa Lockwood into that. And what they found is, what I found later on is the acceptance grew the more I was able to, not come with ego, come personably, but also have the sense of humor that they did.
Yeah. And was there ever a moment where almost like this imposter syndrome, like you said, like I'm a petite young girl, like maybe I'm not cut out for this. Like, do you ever have that? You needed to boost yourself up or give yourself that confidence? And how did you do that?
I did, because I even think about this. I was in the military and police and going through the training, but I remember being with my field training officer in a squad car, and we had to walk around a building to make sure that it was secure. A frog jumped out in front of me, and I ran back to the squad car. Okay, so all of that, and he's like, "Are you kidding me right now? It was a frog, like." You got to get over that. So yeah, I could take the gun out and I could think about, shooting an offender and everything else, but I have this creepy little frog and I'm just like, and I've got combat boots on and steel toe and it's not going to hurt me, but getting spooked like that. I had moments for sure where I thought to myself, like, can I really do this? So the imposter syndrome came later on because of course I was ridiculed about Lockwood ran from a frog, And then I just had to buck up. And I didn't want that the embarrassment goes across the board, even with the guys that get spooked from certain things.
Yeah.
And you're going to be ridiculed and teased, and just have that sense of humor with them.
Yeah. So now walk me through a bit of post being on the SWAT team and really transitioning to becoming a life coach now, a reinvention coach, going on TV networks, like I mentioned in your bio. Where did this transition and be like, okay, now it's time for me to almost teach others to really, you can overcome adversity and you don't have to let, a period in your life define you?
Sure. So I was about to be promoted to sergeant on the police department. And I was getting out of I was undercover detective 3 years, narcotics. I was on SWAT team for 5 years. The next role for me was either transition over back to patrol, get promoted as a financial crime detective, or get promoted as a sergeant. None of those 3 options was compelling. And that was, again, the defining moment in my life where I didn't want to be the boss. I didn't want to do administrative work. I didn't want to, if I'm going to be out there, I'm going to be out there doing it. To me, going back to patrol, was a step backward for me because of all the excitement of undercover work. And then financial crime to me was like such paperwork, and I just wasn't geared toward doing that. It didn't. So here I am in my life. What do I do?
Yeah.
So I started transitioning out, thinking to myself, what could I do? I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, motivational speaker,
Right.
and I had that moment, and it was an epiphany where I said, what do I want to do? Okay, reevaluate my life again. And I realized that once I was in that seminar, I did want to write a book. I did want to share my story. I did want to encourage people that you can go out there and do it despite all the things that were against you in your life. And you don't have to be a victim just because you had been once in your life before. So now I went on this new course of, let me write a book. Let me share my story. In the interim of that, I fell in love, married a new man with 3 kids, became a stepmother, moved to Canada, wrote my book, and then that's when I started coaching. And I felt such a love and passion for that. And that was, way before I started going on television. So that was my new path.
Incredible.
After law enforcement.
Amazing. And even, watching your videos, being this, like this inspirational speaker like Tony Robbins, when I watched it, I was like, wow, she's like the female Tony Robbins, like coming from this place where your childhood is not, like you're not having these role models and idols saying like, okay, I can go to college, I can make this career, and I could do all this.
Right.
You didn't have that. So I think that's amazing. So
Thanks.
Of course. So I know in your lessons as a reinvention coach, I know you have this mindset where yes and mentality. So talk a little bit about this yes and mentality and almost really the importance of your mentality in the face of adversity.
And it's a question that I'm asked a lot. How do you get to a place of anything that happens in your life? And I took this from Tony, and I use it every day, and I use it with clients. Is any situation, reframe your mind to ask the question, what's great about this, or what could be great about this happening right now? What's great about COVID-19 right now? What could be great about it? What am I able to do? How am I able to show up in my life differently because of this situation? Yeah. So yeah, it's the yes and. So this happened. So what? So what? This happened. Now how I react is everything. And having the emotional aptitude or mastery to say that this is a situation. Now I can put my personal filter on it and make a decision whether this is good or bad. And you can make every single thing that happens to you good, or to say there's a lesson in this and I'm going to get it later.
Wow. So that's almost kind of connects to my question, almost this perception of failure, where it's really like how we put the lens on it. Like what lens are we putting on the situation? Right?
It is. And we put our lens on based on our own personal experience. So one thing I've learned is I'm always trying to coach my family, my siblings, and people say you can't be a preacher in your own backyard because they knew you when you were a kid and you were picking your nose, whatever. So they don't have the same type of grasp of it. Oh, that's good for you, Lisa. That's good for you. Your life is good. My life wasn't always good. I came from the same house you did. So it was like it wasn't, but I did use these tools, and these tools have given me, a new outlook. So if you're willing to pick up a couple of these, release victimhood and say, the yes and, the so what, this was my past. So what can I do right now? What one thing can I do right now that's going to help me in my future?
Incredible.
And it's as simple as that.
Yeah. So what about I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs on the show and founders, and I'm personally very passionate about entrepreneurship. And you get a lot of rejection in this field as well as a lot of other fields, obviously. But what about those like instant rejections, whether, not thinking about, years back kind of how you were, but also just in the moment getting a no and being like, you know what, okay, I could either, dwell in that no and get down on myself, but like what steps can I take to be like, you know what, okay, let me get back up and get to the next investor or whoever that's going to give me a potential yes.
Right. So if you train your mind to say, I have an expectation going into anything that you go into, I have an expectation of probably getting 20 no's before I get my first yes. Yeah. And if I get one prior to that, it's a bonus. So as you're ticking off all of these things and going to, job interviews or going to this and going to that, I know when I get there, there's going to be a yes, because statistically that's what happens. Yeah. So beauty pageant for me, did I want to win? Sure. I started to invest myself in it. I wanted the college degree. That would have been great. I was disappointed. I was more disappointed for my mom, who made such an effort. I was crying about her being upset, not about, oh, I'm this pageant girl, whatever, just because of wanting to please her so much.
Right.
But it was like, okay, pick myself up, by the bootstraps, and what could I do now? I thought that I'm young, the world is mine. So what could I do now? And then when you ask those questions, what could I do now? Now these opportunities start to come to you versus now what? I'm doomed for failure.
Yeah.
So it's your language.
So Lisa, before we get to the fun questions, I could honestly talk to you for hours, but before we get to the fun questions, I'm very interested, considering your whole career from your childhood to college to joining the Air Force, becoming a member of the SWAT team, all of those, what can you say is your most proudest moment when you look at everything you've done, whether it's, something you've done or mentality-wise, whatever it is?
So one of the things that people often comment on is the fact that I am very optimistic.
Yeah.
Because I'm always, glasses, half full, etc. And I always find humor in things. So for myself, my proudest thing is my ability to have, mastery over my emotions. Is that I spend very little time in downtime when something happens that didn't go the way that I wanted it. Very little time is there because I'm resourceful to find the next thing. And often people say that, whether it's coaching clients and some family members who will say, God, I wish I had that. That ability to reframe and look at it a different way.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful because I'm happy so freaking much. And, I choose it. Yeah. I choose it. I choose my environment, my surroundings, what I listen to, who I hang with.
Yeah. So even just to build on that, you said you spend very little time. What does that look like? Like, what is very little? A couple minutes, a couple hours? I guess it depends on what happened, but yeah.
Okay, so I'll share something personal. So my new husband, he and I had a disagreement about something. And I said, you know what? I need to remove myself right now from this room and the conversation. And I just went into, my little lounge. And I said, okay, so now I have tools. What can I do? Let me breathe. First thing. Get the dog and pet the dog. Okay, do that. I start my little self-soothing process. Now let me put on some good music. Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. So 20, 25 minutes. Then go visit my spouse with all of that rejuvenation. And I said, okay, so where were we in that conversation?
I love it. So it's almost just like resetting, everything internally or everything you're letting in is like this positive energy. You surround yourself in that positivity and then you can kind of step out and face whatever you're facing. So I think that's great. That's awesome.
And asking yourself good questions. It's the internal dialogue that we have with ourselves all the time. Because my husband was sharp, what does that mean? Oh, he doesn't love me, or, oh, it means, that was rude, or he's disrespecting me, and he's this and this. No, it's because my husband is so masculine, and I call him John Wayne all the time, and I celebrate that he's such a man, and I love that. Yeah. And now I'm going to get upset when he behaves like a man. It's like, no, Lisa, back up a little bit. Yeah. And what is it really? What is the situation really?
Amazing. Okay, Lisa, more fun questions. What's a passion or hobby that you have completely unrelated to any work?
So I love my puppy. I have a Maltese. She's 9 years old. So and I drive people crazy, with my Maltese. I'm besides doing all the things that you do. You're posting pictures, you're sending videos to people, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I have a whole routine with her. I treat her like a baby. And I have a baby stroller for her. And it's pink. It's the most feminine thing that you could ever see in your entire life. We stroll, and I have a little basket on my bicycle, and I put her in there. And nobody in a million years would ever think that, I was on a SWAT team, and I'm that same girl. I could do all those things.
Incredible.
And, I was just this nurturing little Maltese mommy.
I love it. Okay, last question. What is a fun or weird talent that you have that no one else really knows about? And so I'm going to go first. So what I like to do is I throw blueberries into my mouth. Okay, so here we go.
I'm ready.
All right, let's see. Okay. There we go. I was a little scared there. I thought I would be a little rusty.
Good job. But I'm really good at that stuff. Bravo.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to say, all right, so maybe it's not a talent, but I would say this strange little idiosyncrasy that I have. I'm addicted to fart machines. So I love whoopee cushions. I love those little ones that you put under people's chairs and you have a remote control.
Yeah.
I bring those in public with me. I've had them on airplanes with me. I've had them in Uber with me, where I make people think that I'm actually back there and I have gas issues, and have them turn around and be like so upset or so shocked or pretend they don't hear it, and then just laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. And that came from my father. So to this day, I have like fart machines everywhere.
So 2 questions. Do you tell the people, or is it kind of just this unspoken, you laugh it off? And
almost got kicked in the middle of winter, got kicked out of a cab in Montreal, Canada, because I was doing it so much and laughing so much, and he was rolling his window, and I would not tell him until he pulled into a gas station and said, "Get out." And then I show, but I would usually show him after we're all done or getting the luggage out, whatever it is. I try to milk it as long as I can, and then the big reveal.
Oh my goodness. Well, Lisa, I think from there we definitely got a sense of humor you got from your dad. So I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Lisa, I have to say thank you so much for coming on She Leads. It's been such a pleasure just learning from you all the lessons, and just hearing your story is absolutely incredible and very inspiring. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. And again, I wish you great success with your program. I know you're going to be great. As I said before, passion and enthusiasm is everywhere, is everything, and it will get you everywhere. So congratulations on it. And thank you.